Hello and welcome. I'm Saad Dino, pharmacist and co-owner of Acton Pharmacy and West Concord Pharmacy. I would like to welcome everyone back to our show, A Healthier You. Our goal is to discuss relevant health topics and to provide information that will guide you to a healthier life. Today's topic is pharmacy compounding, and our guest today is Ted Tufus, the pharmacist in charge of our new compounding lab at Acton Pharmacy. Compounding is the art and science of a pharmacist preparing a customized medication for patients. Millions of Americans rely on compounded medications because of allergies to a particular medication ingredient, a need for a specific strength or a form, because one size fits all does not always work with medications, or because a medication is not commercially available. A simple example might be when we convert a pill to a liquid to make it possible for a child, as an example, to be able to take their medications. Ted, welcome to our show today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So, Ted, can you please just tell us a little bit about how you became a pharmacist, and then more specifically how you became a compounding pharmacist?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So what it started off with was I graduated with an undergrad degree from WPI in biochemistry. When I graduated, it was a little bit difficult trying to find a job. I started working for a chain pharmacy and started enjoying what I was doing more than my previous degree possibilities. The more I found out from the pharmacists there, the opportunities, the differences that could be done in pharmacy, the more I started exploring, which is when I ran into you still as a technician, and started learning more about compounding, learning about the different aspects of Acton Pharmacy. From there, I started working towards getting into pharmacy school.
Okay.
And I started Mass College of Pharmacy in Boston and earned my doctorate of pharmacy, or my PharmD degree. Since then, I've worked a little bit in mail-order pharmacy. I've worked with, and now I'm working with you running the lab at Acton Pharmacy doing compounded medications.
Excellent. Excellent. Good job. Can you please explain what a compound, to our viewers who may not know what a compound medication is, can you explain what a compound medications are and how they're made?
Sure. Compounded medications are a branch of medications. Basically, what you think of as a standard medication that's commercially available is the medication you get for your blood pressure or your a cream medication or anything that is readily available at any pharmacy that you can walk into. Compounding is taking medications that either start off as a pill form or as a pure powder form and turning them into a different formulation. It's the basis of actual pharmacy, how everything in pharmacy started. The original apothecaries and eventually traditional pharmacy until we ended up with big pharma and having medications made in mass quantities at certain individual strengths. With compounding, we keep the core of the traditions of pharmacy hand in hand with treating patients. What we do is we'll make a dose that's specific to an individual patient and their individual needs.
Okay.
It takes a lot in order to be able to compound because you have to make sure that every formulation is specific to the individual patient for their allergy needs, for their medication regimens that they're currently on. So you want to make sure that there's going to be no interaction with any of the medications, or even the excipients or other ingredients and chemicals that go into the compound that'll keep the drug stable. It won't interfere with the patient themselves or any other medications that they're possibly taking. You want to make sure that the dispensing container, whatever it ends up being, be it a bottle, a tube, a glass, or the material that it's made out of is is taken into as a factor of how the formulation is going to be made, because the stability of the drug or any of the other ingredients in there are critical to how it's being made. So it's a lot different than what it used to be 50 years ago or 100 years ago when pharmacies were around. Taking medication and putting it into cream, for example, we would start off with a pure ingredient. So say somebody needed Prozac made into a cream for a child who's autistic, or something for any medication for a child who's autistic. We would start off with the pure powder of the medication that would be necessary. We would take it, use using technology that is above and beyond the old mortar and pestle days, incorporate the powder into the cream. One of these devices is called an electronic mortar and pestle. Now, it sounds more complicated than it really is. It's a very high spinning device that takes the powder and drives it into the smallest possible recesses of the cream. That allows for an even dispersion, a nice homogeneous mixture, allows for better absorption for the chemical through the skin, and therefore a better therapeutic effect for the patient. Another device that we would use for a cream is called an ointment mill. That takes gritty chemicals or gritty powders. For example, vitamin C is a very, very crystal medication, and it's not something that, if necessary to be applied and absorbed, would absorb very well through the skin. So you'd take it, you would grind it up in the ointment mill while it's in the cream, and it would come into very, very smooth, very, very fine cream that allows for even distribution, even absorption. Okay. So while they're not very complex machines, they do a very complex job in order to make sure that the medication is able to be absorbed and able to be utilized.
Okay. So you're using, equipment that's beyond the mortar and pestle.
Yes.
To get compounded done.
Absolutely.
So so going back to my first question, which let me just reintroduce it, is that, so what kind of education, what kind of training, what kind of learning that does a compounding pharmacist or a compounding technician take? I mean, I know we learn a little bit in school about compounding, but what other educational classes or seminars have you attended?
So besides obviously school, which is a good basis for learning the basics about compounding, attending specific training seminars that are available out there by compounding specialists. So they teach you about new equipment that's out there, new techniques, new procedures, new medications, and the benefits that they may have, or even things to be wary of, like things that traditionally might have been okay to do, again, 20 years ago or so, but something you don't want to work with anymore because it was found out to not be stable or not be useful. Other training that we do is we keep up with primary literature, which is basically published literature from accredited sources. Okay. That have new techniques, new information about absorption or stability, new creams that might be available, or bases, or vehicles. What a vehicle basically is the base of the medication. It's what keeps the drug in either a suspension if you're making a liquid to drink, or to take orally, or if it's for a suppository, it's the base that would be melting at a certain temperature in order to allow the drug to be absorbed when inserted. So it depends on what you're talking about. And the world of pharmacy is constantly evolving.
Sure.
So one thing you have to make sure is you stay on top of all the new information, the new products, new availability of information and resources that are out there.
Excellent. So, just a couple of pointers that I've gotten out of what you just told me is that there's a lot of education that goes into becoming a compounding pharmacist, and at the same time, everything that is made in a compounding pharmacy is, is very patient specific.
Absolutely.
Maybe you have this one drug, but no two people will have the exact same dose because every person is different.
Exactly.
Their metabolism is different, their genetics is different, their makeup is different, so the dose that might work for you may not work for me.
Exactly.
And that's where compounding comes into effect.
And one of the prime examples for that is our metabolic medications that we do for children and adults who have metabolic deficiencies. Yeah. And this can range from cofactors, vitamins, scavenging medication that helps reduce free radicals that damage
antioxidants,
basically. Yep. Yes. Yep. That help with vitalization of key factors in liver, kidneys, or other parts of the body. And each person is so unique because it does boil down to their individual genetic makeup, their individual chemical processes in the body. And to say that two people have the same exact dose for a medication, that's impossible because two people are not genetically identical. We have children who are twins or triplets, and they have different needs between the 2 or 3 children, even though they're genetically identical. And that's further proof that the biochemistry in each individual patient is variable based on how they live or how they are.
And the term that with compounding is always, one size doesn't always fit all.
Correct.
So that's where, again, the compounding aspect of pharmacy comes into effect. And again, compounding has been around for centuries, right? I mean, that's how
Exactly.
back hundreds or thousands of years. So you mentioned something about in the introduction that you have a new compounding lab at Acton Pharmacy.
Yes.
Can you please describe what's so unique about the new lab and when is it going to open and all that stuff?
So we're proud to announce that we'll be transitioning into the new lab over this coming weekend, and starting on Monday, December 15th, we'll be fully functional in the new lab.
Okay.
The new lab consists of three separate areas that are completely unique in how we've designed it. We have a special environmental control system that is pretty much the new standard for compounding labs in like for the medications that we do.
Okay.
It helps control possible contamination or cross-contamination of medications from one to the other. The hoods that we are using are, which are basically the environment, the local environment. So you have the general environment of the lab, but you also have the local environment of where you're actually compounding on the bench. And that's another hood in and of itself that draws air away from what's being compounded, so that way there's, again, less risk of contamination or less risk of any issues happening around the compound. We use a lot of digital tracking methods for our compounds. Every single chemical is labeled and barcoded, and all of our formulations are in a computer data bank. And in order to be able to make one, you have to scan the individual chemical that you're utilizing at that time, weigh it, and the weight is recorded digitally into the computer.
Wow.
Yeah, and we also have a limitation where we don't allow above a certain % error to happen when we're weighing it. So, say by accident someone mistakes 3 grams for 3 milligrams, or vice versa. The computer will not allow you to proceed and continue making the compound, because there's an error checking already built into the prescription. Okay. Besides the fact that obviously a pharmacist at the end will check everything, and all the technicians and everybody have training to avoid situations like that. But it's another safety feature that we've put into our lab.
So you mentioned the word standards. What standards does this compounding? I mean, we have obviously Board of Pharmacy that we follow standards and regulations and laws and so on and so forth. But what further standards does a compounding pharmacy have to follow?
Yep. So one of the governing standards for pharmacy in general is called the United States Pharmacopoeia, or it's also known as USP for shorthand. They set out rules and general guidelines of how you should proceed in pharmacy, whether it's dispensing medication or compounding or anything like that. Recently, the USP has made more stringent controls on how to compound medications, and our facility that we have meets and exceeds the standards that they've released, even standards they aren't going to be releasing for the next year. The ones that they've been talking about, contemplating that they're going to release.
Excellent.
We've met and exceeded those.
Okay. So going back to the compounding aspect, you mentioned that a compounding pharmacy can prepare a medication that's commercially unavailable. Yes. How often do you encounter that? And give us one example of the situation, if you don't mind.
So it happens once in a while. It's not a very frequent occurrence, at least with the type of medications that we usually deal with. One example is we have children who are on the ketogenic diet. What the ketogenic diet is, it's a low-carb, high-fat diet that is designed to biochemically produce what are called ketones. It's used in seizure patients as kind of a last resort therapy that they're not able to. They're taking other medications, but they add on this because the other medications aren't controlling their seizures quite as well.
Okay.
And this diet, it's not a do-it-yourself. It's not an at-home diet. You really have to monitor everything very, very carefully.
With the doctor and
With
the nurse
with the doctor,
and
with the nutritionist,
Yep.
exactly. So with the ketogenic diet, if you take any carbs, you don't produce the ketones, which help change the chemical balance in the brain and reduce the seizures. And one of the medications that has been commercially available for years was a powder formulation of a medication that contained no carbohydrates, no sugars, no anything. And it's been off the market for about a year now. So we've been helping these patients by making a solution with powders that we're able to get.
Yep.
And it's a carb-free, it's still sweetened and flavored, but it's using a non-carb base, non-sugar base that we're able to provide for our patients.
And I assume you're working very closely with the yourself as a pharmacist, or our group of pharmacists are working closely with the nurses and the dietitians and the nutritionists and the doctors to provide them with the caloric intake that's very important in that kind of situation.
Yes. Every single child that we deal with, we'll talk with the physicians. If they're on this diet, we have to make other medications. Even the basic oils that we make to hold certain drugs that are stable only in an oil base, we have to let them know what the calorie value is and everything.
So with compounding, I mean, in pharmacy in general, we're always talking to physicians' offices and nurses. With compounding, we seem like you're doing it even more, because of the fact that these are all very patient-specific medications, and it's a team effort. It's what we call we like to use the triad. It's a patient on top, and then you have a doctor and a pharmacist that's working together to give the best outcome to the patient. And I assume that's what you're speaking of.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, how long does it to make a compound? I mean, is it 5 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days? How long does it take?
I love to tell everybody that I could get it done right away.
Okay.
But unfortunately, as you heard, there's a lot of controls, there's a lot of research into formulations, the stability. If it's something that we've made before, but obviously the dose is slightly different, the research part is taken away, so you have a little bit less time you have to work with. But hypothetically, say that we have something that a patient comes in for the first time, completely unique dose, completely unique formulation. So it's something we have to research. We have to find out stability of the vehicles, dosing, verify the dosing, because sometimes what the doctor may think is appropriate might not be, or vice versa. So we want to make sure that every single aspect of the medication is completely accurate. We'd like to say 2 business days as an average for when most medications are taken care of.
Okay.
There's certain validation steps that have to be done after the compound has been made. It's an internal validation system that we've developed, allows for better accuracy in the compounding, and that takes time. But I'd rather delay the medication by a few extra hours or something for a patient than give them something that it wouldn't be accurate or wouldn't be good enough for them to help them treat what they need to treat.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. So should people be concerned about compounded medications, or where they get it from, or
What I would, my concern would be if, let's say I was a patient out there that needed a compounded medication, my concern would be who's making it and how are they making it, where are they getting the material. We use wholesalers for our medications, for all of our chemicals that are FDA-approved facilities.
Okay.
All of the powders meet a standard testing regimen that is designed and defined by United States Pharmacopoeia. Then it's a printout that we receive. We review the printout. It's called a certificate of analysis, or a C of A.
Yep.
And we analyze that, make sure that it meets within the specifications, and then we proceed and invoice the medication and utilize it. These are basic security steps that we take to ensure that we have a quality product, and the preparation that we make is a quality preparation in the end. I don't know what other people may may have set up in a situation, but that's our standards and how we set it up.
Can you compound over-the-counter products?
Only with a prescription.
Okay.
And if there's a medical necessity to do so. There are obviously any medication that somebody can take that is commercially available. It wouldn't be something that we would patent unless there's like an allergy or something that can be done because of patent issues.
Yeah.
And it would be a medical necessity like an allergy to a dye or a flavoring agent or something in there. Or, for example, let's say, again, tablet that is available, but there's no liquid version of it available for a child that really needs the medication. So there are situations that we can compound over-the-counter medications.
So you can't compound something that's commercially a patentable product.
Correct.
Due to cost, to make it lower cost for...
Correct,
Okay.
yes. Yeah,
There's
again,
patent laws that you have to follow.
Yeah, there's certain laws, both federal and state laws, that we have to follow in regards to how, what we can make or how we can make it. But
okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Obviously, with any medications, there are risks to any compounded medications. I mean, just talking in the sense of counseling and side effects and such, it's still a medication at the end.
Yes.
So how do you, what steps do you take to counsel patients and such on compounded, specifically on compounded medications?
Sure. So we talk to the patients on the phone before we make anything. Okay. New patients or a new medication for an existing patient. We'll call, speak with them, explain to them what the medication is, whether they were expecting it or not, because sometimes the doctor doesn't tell the patient it. So we'll let them know, we'll go over the medication. When they come into the store to pick up the medication, we'll go over it with them again, show them the individual device, how to dispense the medication. Sometimes it's easy as, it's a liquid medication, just stop in the bottle, plug in the syringe, flip it over, and you're done. There's certain storage requirements that are different. Most pills can be kept at room temperature. Mm-hmm. Well, some of the compounded capsules that we make, or some of the liquid, or most of the liquids that we make, have to be refrigerated. Okay. So there's plenty of stickering and labeling, but we always want to make sure that the patient's aware. Okay. We design monographs that are specific to compounded medications that we make. What do you mean by monograph? So a monograph is an insert or a medication leaflet. Okay. That we've written up specifically for the medication that's made, how to use, what it's used for, how to store, what to do if you took more than you expected, okay, etc. Okay. It's not something that exists out there because obviously compounded medications are unique. Yep. So we've developed our own inside the store. That's most of what we do to help minimize risk for a patient. Obviously, every medication has side effects. Right. And every compounded medication is a medication. Whether it's a vitamin mix for a metabolic patient, it still is different than a multivitamin you would take over the counter. So we go over with them potentially how to mitigate those side effects. For example, if it's drowsiness, if you can take the medication once a day, take it at bedtime. Yep. That way you're already going to be going to sleep. Or if they're going to have diarrhea or stomach issues or anything like that, make sure to take it with food, plenty of water. So there's definitely ways of helping patients with the medications that they're taking. Okay.
What are the most commonly prescribed compounded medications you see? I mean, what kind of arena are you working with?
Sure. So there's a lot of classes of medications that we work with. Veterinary medications, so for cats, dogs, but also for specialty animals like hedgehogs, rabbits.
Really?
Yep. Okay. We can work with anything. We've had a horse, we've had a rat for clients of ours, and it's worked out well for the owners. Difficulty of administration is something we take into for them. Taste, again, delivery system. Sometimes it's going to be different than what you would think of for a human. Okay. And back to the human side, we have the metabolic medications those in and of themselves cover a broad variety of medications. Sure. There's hormone replacement therapy for women who are perimenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal to help treat with the symptoms of menopause. There's seizure medications like we've spoken of before. Yep. There's also just general pediatric medications that we help patients with that it's an issue with the patient being able to take the medication because of an allergy or it's not available in the liquid or anything like that. Autism is another scope of practice that we help out with. A lot of those patients like to be touched or rubbed, so we try and make creams or gels when possible, so that way they can be applied by the parent or caregiver, and the child is able to take the medication whereas they wouldn't want to swallow a liquid or a capsule or something like that.
Perfect. So what got you interested in compounding? Why did you get into the field of compounding? I mean, we're going back to our first question.
It combines kind of everything that I love. It combines my knowledge of chemistry and biochemistry. I mean, one of the biggest rewards of designing a formulation is, the final mixture is beautiful. It comes out great, and it's able to be administered. My love of helping patients out, especially children. I mean, I know how difficult it is to be a kid and not want to take the medication. My parents had a hard time with that with me, and hearing parents being like, "Hey, I was able to get my kid to take this medication. Thank you very much." I mean, it's a great reward. I mean, talking with patients and helping design a medication that helps them or their loved one with a disease state that they couldn't get help from anywhere else. I mean, there's nothing better than that. And
the collaboration probably with the physicians and
speaking with the physicians, you learn a lot of information. Stuff that you're not going to learn in pharmacy school. You couldn't pick up a book and read about it because it's so rare. It's so unique.
Okay, perfect. Ted, this has been a very informative discussion about compounding. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to be on our show today and sharing your expertise with our audience. And thank you all for tuning into our Healthier You. I'm Saad Dino, co-owner of Acton Pharmacy, West Concord Pharmacy. From our family to yours, we wish you all a healthy, happy, and festive holiday season. Be well.